Hi, I'm Christina, and this is a book review of The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. So this was published in 2003, and our main character is called Eddie. He is 83 years old. It's actually his 83rd birthday as we meet him, and he is a maintenance staff worker at an amusement park called Ruby Pier. And on the day of his 83rd birthday, Eddie dies. Now, this isn't a spoiler. We are told that he dies in the first few sentences of the book, and I'm going to just read you the very beginning of the book because it's so beautifully written, and I think it gives you a really nice introduction to the story. This is a story about a man named Eddie, and it begins at the end with Eddie dying in the sun. It might seem strange to start a story with an ending, but all endings are also beginnings. We just don't know it at the time. So I absolutely love this book. I've given this one 5 stars, and I read it really quickly. I read the majority of this book on one of my day offs from work, and I was sitting out in the sun reading it, and I read a really good chunk of it. I think I got to about here, and I wanted to just read the whole thing, but I didn't have any more time. So I think I read it over the space of about 3 days, which is very fast for me now. It is only a short book, but I really enjoyed this one. I found it really moving, really emotive, and it is very beautifully written. I loved the writing style, and I also really like the character of Eddie. He's obviously a flawed person, and there's a lot of things he does that aren't good, and we discover that through the story, but I also really like him as a person. There's a lot of good and bad in him and a lot of people. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And the story itself is told in a few different timelines. So we follow the present, and it is his 83rd birthday. He's at work, he's doing his normal job of doing the maintenance of the rides in this amusement park, and then something bad is going to happen, and he tries to save a girl, and that's when he dies. And then we also follow that story as he has already died, and we're seeing the people left on Earth that are kind of dealing with his death. And then we also see the present for him as he is entering his heaven. And then we also kind of go back to the past and follow him as he first meets his wife with his family, he goes to war, and we follow all of these different things that happen in Eddie's life. And yeah, it is such an emotionally driven story. I was very connected to these characters, and there are some things that are truly awful that happen in this story, and it is very moving. I would say it really touched me in lots of ways, this story. I found it incredibly sad at times, but also very kind of uplifting and hopeful as well. And I really like the way that we looked at heaven itself. So I wouldn't say this is like a traditional version of heaven. It's his own take on heaven, if you will. And he essentially does meet 5 people in heaven, and the idea is every person meets 5 different people when they go to heaven, and some of those people were really important people in your life, like your wife, for example, or someone else you're related to, or sometimes it can even be people that you never actually met in life as such, but something that you did or something that happened means you're connected in some way. And something that happened then connects you two together, so then they appear in your heaven and they're one of the people that you meet. Or for example, it could even be someone that had no actual impact on your day-to-day life, and they lived a long time before you were even born, and one of the people that Eddie meets is that person, it's interesting to see, and the idea that everybody has 5 people. So when you die and you go to heaven, you see your 5 people, and then you can go to the next stage of heaven, if you will, once you've seen your 5 people. And yeah, I thought it was a really interesting concept, and also, like I said, very beautifully written. There's also a recurring section that is titled "This is Eddie's Birthday," and you see him on his birthday throughout his lifetime, and sometimes he's celebrating with other people, sometimes he's alone as he gets older. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this story. There's actually a sequel which I definitely like to read. It's called I think it's called The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. Yeah, so I'm definitely interested in reading that one. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So the reason I picked this up is because I was drawn to the title. I thought it was such a great title, and when I see a book which has a really interesting, unique title, it normally pulls me in, and I'm just, I always get sucked in by a brilliant title. And I thought The 5 People You Meet in Heaven is a very interesting title, so I definitely wanted to read this. And I actually bought this at the airport, so it kind of drew me in, and I thought, yeah, I can't leave this one behind. It has such a great title. And overall, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend it. I don't want to tell you too much about it. I feel like this is quite a difficult one to review because I don't want to tell you who the 5 people he meets are, because I think that would be classed as spoilers. And I don't want to tell you too much more about what actually happens, just because I think it's one of those ones you want to kind of just experience for yourself and just enjoy it for yourself as you go. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I really like the people that have been chosen to be his 5 as well. So one of the first people you meet, I'm obviously not going to tell you, but someone in his life that something he did affected that person in a great way and in a really, really big way, essentially. And then we also have, like I say, there's one person that he never actually met in his lifetime, and she didn't even live in his lifetime, but her existence was a massive thing that impacted Eddie's life in the future, if that makes sense. And then we also, I think, the 5th and final person he meets was really, really interesting, and I found that very heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. And just kind of watching Eddie through the past and then meeting these people, the idea is every person that you meet in heaven out of your 5 is there to teach you something about your life. So essentially, when you go to heaven in this scenario, you're learning the meaning of your life and why certain things happened the way they did and why certain things might not have happened the way they did, and why people would die at certain times as this greater part of a plan, if you will. And then once you have understood why things happened in your life and you can accept all of those things, you go on to the second stage of heaven. So everybody in this scenario would have to meet their 5 people when it is their time. And if you then become someone else's one of 5 people, you will then meet them in their time when they come to heaven, and you will wait for that person if you have then become significant in their 5 people that are important to their life. So yeah, I really like the concept. I thought it was very interesting. I don't think I've seen that type of a story before. I thought it was a very interesting, yeah, very kind of imaginative way of looking at an afterlife. And obviously it's his like opinion of an afterlife. It's not like a traditional religious version of what the afterlife would be. So yeah, really, really enjoyed it. I found it really interesting. I found it very emotive, and yeah, certain parts of it I didn't actually cry, but they certainly made me well up with tears. So yeah, I found it a very emotive read, and I'm very much looking forward to reading the second book in this series. And I have an idea of what it is now, but I'm not gonna tell you, because obviously that would be a spoiler for this book. But yeah, really enjoyed it, would highly, highly recommend it, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading more books by him. So thank you so much for watching. If you have read this book, I would love to know what you thought of it down in the comments below. If you've read any other books by him, definitely know what we think of those too. He's written quite a few books actually, and I have to say I'd never actually heard of him before this. I'd never really heard of any of these books. It was just this title that drew me in, and yeah, really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you've liked the video, please do like it, and if you'd like to hear more of me talking about books, please do subscribe. I'll see you in my next one.